When do I take the pacifier away from my child? How do I take the pacifier away from my child? Or when should my child stop sucking their thumb? And quite frankly, how the hell am I supposed to get my child to stop sucking their thumb? These are questions and concerns that most parents have either after they leave their first dental appointment or after that last family gathering when you're kind of like pulled off to the side by grandma or aunt and they give you and they provide you with like that unsolicited advice or unsolicited comments and are like, I saw Johnny sucking his thumb and you are going to have some major dental issues in your future. By the end of today's video, I am going to give you legit tools and appropriate ways to answer that when and how. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome back. If this is our first time meeting, my name is Alicia Tomowski and this is my channel, The Parent Brain Ballgame. Because let's be honest guys, sometimes this parent brain, that shit is just not all that intuitive. And quite frankly, you have to play ball with your kids both figuratively and literally to get that job done. Here, my passion is to provide you with parenting tools, not tips, tricks, or hacks, but parenting tools of an applied behavior analysis foundation. I like to think that I make them user-friendly. Now I want to set you guys up for success. I like to make these videos relatively short. The odds are as you're a caregiver and you have a short amount of time that you're kind of working with anyways. So I kind of need to drop that knowledge as quickly as possible. So go get yourself a notebook because here we go. So I'm just going to read this next part because quite frankly, there's a lot of data and there's a lot of words in here that are not exactly my forte and I want to make sure that I deliver them appropriately. So the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry recommends that children stop non-nutritive sucking habits by the age of 36 months or younger. The American Academy of Dental Association recommends children stop using the pacifier by the age of 2. If the habit can be stopped anywhere between the ages of 2 and 2.5 years old, that would be the best. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends the pacifier use up to 6 months at sleep to help reduce the SIDS, the risk of SIDS. But after 1, they don't encourage it since it's shown that you can have some middle ear infections. They recommend weaning from the pacifier during the second 6 months of life to prevent complications from prolonged use, such as negative effects on breastfeeding, dental issues, speech problems, and emotional attachments. Are you feeling anxious yet? And or did you even listen to any of that I just said? Because quite frankly, I felt like I just verbally vomited a whole bunch of shit that was like contradictory to each other and we need to like kind of like sift through it all. Data, on the other hand, is my forte. So after going through all of those little numbers from all those various different resources, I came up with an average. So let's come up with an average of the frequency, meaning the number of times that your child should be using the pacifier or should be some thumb sucking. Let's start decreasing that around the age of 1.5 to 2. And let's say bye-bye to the pacifier and or thumb sucking around the age of 3. Now, if you're watching and your child is nowhere in that 1.5 to 3-year-old gap, don't worry. The strategies that I'm about to provide you are just as effective for you. It's just going to take you a little bit longer because you have a little bit longer of a history that you're going to want to rework. So in order to ease that transition, what we want to do is we want to pair another age-appropriate item, whatever item you find and you deem age-appropriate for your child, to replace that thumb sucking or that pacifier sucking. So you might want to replace it with a blanket, or you might want to replace it with those blankets that have like the little heads on top of it, and that sounds like a nightmare as I say it out loud. But I mean like those blankets that have like the little bunny head and like little bunny arms and it turns into a blanket. Okay, you know where I'm going with this, okay? So what you want to do is every time your child tries popping their thumb or tries popping their pacifier in their mouth, you want to give them that transition item. You also, so in other words, I want my kids sucking on the thumb and then I want them kind of petting the blanket. And if you don't want to have the blanket, give them a stuffed animal if you think that's more age appropriate. And again, don't worry, we're going to get rid of all of this. But right now, you need a transition item. Your kid has something physical in order to calm them down. So we want to replace that with something physical and then eventually start replacing that with some more appropriate calming techniques. Okay, so now once our child has paired it with another ideal item, whether that be that blankie or that headed blankie, which still sounds super creepy as I say it, but I know you guys know what I'm talking about, or a stuffed animal for all I care, okay, whatever you find to be age appropriate, okay? What you want to do is you want to start setting those low stress limits. And by that I mean, if your child is thumb sucking and or has that pacifier in their mouth because it's an all-day companion, let's start saying, hey, you know what? You can't have that pacifier once you leave the house. But you know what you can have? You can have that giraffe. You can't have the pacifier, but you can have the giraffe. Now I understand, like, both of those items at this point should be paired as a comforter, because every time your child had that pacifier or every time your child engaged in that thumb sucking, you immediately presented that other item, okay? Now, on a hierarchy scale, yes, okay. Your pacifier or that thumb sucking is gonna be a little bit higher than, like, say my little giraffe is gonna be, but it's better than nothing. Now, I'm not gonna lie, you need to be a little bit more vigilant and determining what type of low stress limits that you're gonna set forth if your child is engaging in thumb sucking. You cannot say, hey, no thumb sucking when I leave the house, because if you're driving in the car, you gotta drive your car to get somewhere. You can't stop your child from thumb sucking. So you need to set up limits that you can abide by. And again, we don't want them to be stressful. We want to take this incrementally. You want to take it slowly but surely and back off of that bigger, calmer activity that they're engaging in and replace it with what we deem to be a more age-appropriate replacement behavior. Now, it's important during all of this that we're observing our child's response. Again, remember that our children are coming out of this womb sucking, okay? So this is like a natural day one response, okay? So don't expect your children to go cold turkey in 2.5 seconds. Some children have an easier transition than others, and that's totally acceptable. There is no race to the finish line. On that note, it is super important that you do not backslide, okay? Like, it is super hard giving up anything. And if you sit there and are like, oh my God, I can't handle it, and one day give them the pacifier, bam, you are right back at day one. That quickly, that easily. I know it sounds insane, but it's totally true, okay? So you cannot backslide. Once you start this, you need to stick to your guns and stick to that regimen. Once you feel you're down to the point to where your child is only sucking their thumb, or your child is only using the pacifier during nap times or during bedtimes, once you're at that like last pivotal moment, let's invite the Passy Fairy, okay? Yeah, it's gonna be similar to the Tooth Fairy, all right? Your Passy Fairy is going to exchange their pacifier or the use of their thumb for something else. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a toy or money. It can be like a celebration the next day. But again, it's more of like celebrating the fact that your child has eliminated and or has evolved and or has moved on from that pacifier and or that thumb sucking onto, whether it be your blanket or your stuffed animal, a different way of soothing themselves. If you don't like the idea of the fairy, then set up like a ceremonial goodbye to whether that is going to be the pacifier and or it's going to be the thumb sucking. You want to celebrate the success that your child has moved on from sucking their thumb or sucking the pacifier and then moved on to this blanket or the headed blanket, which still sounds nightmarish to me, but again, I know what you guys know what I'm talking about. Or like a stuffed animal that your child has progressed on to another stage. Again, that is something to celebrate. So do a celebration for your child and give like a kind of like a ceremonial goodbye to the tactic that they used before. And with that, my friends, it wraps it up for me. So if you found value in today's video, don't forget to hit subscribe and that little bell icon that lets you know when I do any other future trainings and our videos, which I do weekly. Please also feel that you can comment below on some other maybe behaviors or things that you're concerned about with your child, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.